Hi, boys and girls. This is day 5 of your week 6 packet. It is called It Could Always Be Worse. This is a Jewish folk tale. At the beginning of the week, we talked about fables, and now we're talking about folk tales. I will put a short video in here. It's going to be the same video probably that you saw at the beginning of the week, telling you the difference between a fable, a folk tale, and a tall tale. And then we'll go ahead and start reading our folk tale.
Fables, folk tales, and tall tales. What are they? How are they different? And what should you look for when you read them? Fables are brief stories with a moral at the end. The main characters are often animals which represent human qualities, like Aesop's fables, the tortoise and the hare, and the fox and the crow. Folk tales are old stories that have been told and retold from generation to generation. They have no identifiable author. They tend to revolve around universal themes and reveal cultural values. They also will probably communicate a moral or lesson. So what's the difference? Fables are short and feature animals, whereas folk tales started as oral traditions and feature people. Both of them will teach a moral. And then there were tall tales. The main character is a hero described as being extraordinary. His or her abilities are exaggerated in order to engage the reader in entertainment. So what do they all have in common? They're traditional stories. They highlight positive human qualities, and they reveal cultural values. Happy reading.
It could always be worse. Directions. Read the folktale below and answer the questions. A certain man had come to the end of his rope, and so he decided to pay a visit to his rabbi to ask for some advice. "Rabbi," he cried, "my life is terrible and is getting worse all of the time. We are a poor family, and my wife, our 6 children, and my in-laws all live in a tiny one-room house. Our nerves are shattered and we quarrel constantly. I don't know how much more of this I can take." The rabbi considered the man's situation and said, "My son, I'll tell you what to do. If you follow my advice carefully, your life will improve." "Oh, yes," replied the man. "I'll do whatever you say." "Tell me, what animals do you own?" asked the rabbi. "I have a cow, a goat, and a few chickens," he responded. "Well, this is what you need to do. Go home and bring all of the animals inside your house to live with you." The man was astonished by what the rabbi told him to do, but he followed his advice and went home and brought all of the animals inside of the house. The next morning, the man rushed to see the rabbi, saying, "Rabbi, I did what you told me to do, but things are even worse than ever. My house has turned into a barn. Please tell me what I should do." "My son," replied the rabbi, "go home and take the chickens out of the house." So the man went home and took the chickens out of the house, but soon afterwards he went running back to the rabbi. "Help me, Rabbi," he cried. "My goat is destroying everything in the house. She is turning my life upside down." "Go home," the rabbi said, "and take the goat out of the house." So the man went home and took the goat outside, but soon afterwards he went rushing back to the rabbi. "Rabbi, you must save me now. The cow has turned my house into a barn. How can I live with such a messy animal that moves day and night?" "Here's what you should do," said the rabbi. "Go home and take the cow out of the house." So the man went home immediately and took the cow out of the house. The next morning, the man rushed to see the rabbi once more. "Rabbi, you have made my life sweet again. Now that all the animals are outside, the house is so quiet and so much more roomy and clean. Thank you so much for your wise advice." Okay, I want you to read this folk tale again and go ahead and mark up your text number each paragraph, double star important facts, circle keywords or details you want to remember, put an X over things you don't understand, put a question mark over things you find confusing or have questions about, underline the unfamiliar words, put an exclamation mark over things you find interesting, draw an arrow next to parts you made connections to. Pause here, and when you're finished doing all of that, push play and come back. Okay, I've marked up my text. I have 6 paragraphs. I underlined some words or idioms or phrases I thought you might not know. When somebody says they have come to the end of their rope, that's an idiom, and that just means that they're like so frustrated or upset they can't handle it anymore. A rabbi is a Jewish religious leader or teacher. If you say our nerves are shattered, it just means you're completely stressed out. So if you're totally stressed out, you're frustrated beyond belief, and if you say we quarrel constantly, what do you think that might mean? Right, you fight all the time. You're arguing all the time. This word astonished, the man was astonished by what the rabbi told him to do. Like he was shocked. He couldn't believe it. Turning my life upside down, exactly like that. Everything's a mess and nothing's going correct. Nothing's going the way it's supposed to be. A barn is just a building or structure that you would put all your animals in, or if you are a farmer, maybe you put all your farming equipment in. Here I made a connection just where it says they're all in one room and their nerves are shattered and they're quarreling. Have you ever felt like if your family's totally getting on your nerves and everybody feels like in each other's space? Maybe you feel like that right now when we're all quarantined, sheltering in place, and you're just like, oh, I need to get out of this house and my family's driving me nuts. I think we could all kind of make a connection to that. Here I put a question mark because I just was astonished, just like the man was. Why did the rabbi tell him to put all those animals in his house? I don't understand. And then down here I put 2 stars because this seemed like it somehow was the answer to everything. So I think I need to think about it more and read it again. The next morning, the man rushed to see the rabbi once more. Rabbi, you have made my life sweet again. Now that all the animals are outside, the house is so quiet and so much more roomy and clean. Thank you so much for your wise advice. So what the advice the rabbi gave him worked. So that makes me think that's super important. Okay, let's get to our questions. What message is the author trying to convey in this story? So remember, the message is what is the lesson that the author's trying to teach us? I'm going to have you guys watch the video one more time about how to find the theme, the moral, the message. And then what I want you to do is read through the article and think, what do you think the author is trying to teach us? And when you think you have it, go ahead and write it down and we'll go over it together.
Theme. But what is theme? Theme is the lesson the author wants us to learn from the story. Themes tell us what we should or should not do to ensure happiness and success in our own lives. But how do we find this elusive theme? Well, observe what the characters in a story say and do. Pay very, very close attention. And afterwards, ask yourself, what were the consequences of those actions? Some consequences are good, and some consequences are bad. That will lead you towards the theme of the story. So let's see an example using a familiar fairy tale. But first, a few ground rules about theme. Themes are a complete sentence, always, never with just one word. And themes never contain character names, not ever. A theme is true for everyone. Young and old, rich or poor, black or white, doesn't matter. If it doesn't, it's not truly a theme. But back to Cinderella. So let's look at this story first. Let's get started. We have a beautiful girl, sweet, charming, but being treated like a slave. We have a stepmother and stepsisters. All three very, very wicked. Very wicked. We have a prince. Yowza. We have a ball that the beautiful girl wants to go to. We have the wicked stepmother and stepsisters trying to stop her at every turn. We have a fairy godmother. Ultimate hookup. See? So Cinderella gets to go to the ball and she meets the prince. Love at first sight. Beautiful thing. She has to run away at midnight because everything's going to become unmagicked, and she leaves behind her glass slipper. The wicked stepmother tries to stop her from trying on the glass slipper and preventing her from becoming the actual wife of the prince. Surprise, surprise, it doesn't work. And when it's all said and done, Cinderella and the prince live happily ever after. Seems pretty simple, right? Wrong! Cinderella has lots of themes. I mean, they're all throughout the movie itself. Let's start with nothing is impossible with teamwork. It's a complete sentence, it can apply to anyone in any situation, and it contains no character name. Plus, I can back up this theme. In the movie, Cinderella's little mice friends and bird friends actually hook up together to make her a dress so she can go to the ball. I mean, they're cutting with scissors, the little blue birds are flying around, it's just teamwork out the wazoo. And the consequence is that a beautiful dress is made at the end. Nothing is impossible with teamwork. I mean, these are singing mice, they shouldn't be able to do this. And how about true love will always win in the end? Complete sentence, no character names, and can apply in every situation. So even though the wicked stepmother and the wicked stepsisters, who by the way are complete haters, tried to stop Cinderella at every point and turn, she still ended up with her one true love. True love will always win in the end. Don't be cruel or bad things will happen to you. Definitely true, complete sentence, no character names, and can apply to anyone. Long story short, these two haters died alone, probably eaten by their cats because they were so mean to Cinderella throughout the entire movie. Enough said. We could keep going, but I think you're getting the picture. Let's review. A theme is a lesson that the author wants you or us to learn from a story. Themes are always complete sentences. Themes never include character names. And a theme is true for everyone, young or old, rich or poor, black or white, tall or short, doesn't matter. If it doesn't apply to everyone, then it's not a true theme. To find a theme, observe what the characters in the story say and do. And ask yourself, what were the consequences of those actions? Were they good, ding ding, or bad? And that will lead you to the theme of the story. So the next time you find yourself reading a book, or listening to the words on a song, or watching a movie, pay very close attention to those characters. Look to see what they say and what they do. Ask yourself what are the consequences of those actions, and see if you can find the themes.
Okay, let's think about what happened in this story. So this guy comes to the rabbi and he's super frustrated and he's saying like all these people live in this tiny one-room house and, we're fighting all the time and we're just frustrated. The rabbi says, okay, we'll bring every animal you have in the house. And the guy comes back and is like, oh my gosh, it's so much worse, blah, blah, blah. The rabbi says, take out, what did he say? Take the chickens out of the house. And one by one, he takes all the animals back out of the house. So that at the end, the man comes back and is like, you've made my life sweet again. The house is so quiet. It's so much more roomy. It's so much more clean. Thank you for your advice. Think about how the story started and ended. It started and ended with the guy still in a tiny house. It started and ended with the guy and with his wife, his 6 children, and his in-laws, still in a tiny one-room house. But in between that, they threw all the animals in there, which made it even worse, and one by one took each animal out, so that at the end, when he was left with just his family and in-laws again, the house seemed much bigger, quieter, and clean. So what could be the message then that the author's telling us, or trying to teach the man? Well, the lesson could be that the author is telling me, the reader, to appreciate what you have because it could be worse. So how could it be worse? It could be worse because you could have all those animals living in your teeny tiny room, one-room house as well. But now the man appreciates his one-room house once all the animals are out of there. So that could be the message. The author is saying to appreciate what you have because it could be worse. Which key detail in the text gave you a clue about the theme? Go ahead and find your clues. We just discussed them. Write them down for your answer, and when you're finished, push play and we'll go over it together. Okay, so we already kind of discussed how we came up with the message the author was trying to tell us. But one thing I forgot to mention is that you always should be also looking at the title. The title of our article, our story, the title of our folk tale was that it could always be worse. Things can always be worse. And that really helped figure out the message that the author was saying to appreciate what you have because it could be worse. So for question 2, which key detail in the text gave you a clue about the theme? There were a couple of them. The title gives me a clue about the theme. Also, the text states, now that all the animals are outside, the house is so quiet and so much more roomy and clean. Remember, that was in that last paragraph, paragraph 6. This gives me a clue that the man was starting to appreciate that his life was not so bad when you compared it to the mess and chaos of having the animals inside the house. Okay, for question 3, we are going to summarize this folk tale. Now, remember that earlier in the week we used this strategy, somebody wanted but so then. It just kind of helps guide you to writing a summary. Somebody, who is the main character, wanted. What did the character want? But what was the problem? So, how did the character try to solve the problem? Then, what was the resolution to the story? Now, you don't necessarily have to use these specific words, but it's just guiding you to get the order and make sure you don't miss any of the key events. Remember, when you're summarizing, it's not a retell. You're not telling me every bitty little detail. You're telling me the most important parts that if you were to leave them out, the story would not make sense. Go ahead and take time now to write your summary. Push pause, and when you have it and you think you like the way it is, then push play and we'll go over it together. Okay, boys and girls, I highlighted certain words so you could see how I used this strategy. Remember, the somebody is who is the main character, wanted, what did the character want, but what was the problem, so how did the character solve the problem, then what was the resolution to the story. A man goes to see a rabbi. So who's the somebody? A man. A man goes to see a rabbi because he wanted advice. The man lives with his family, but is not happy because they are so crowded in a tiny house and argue all the time. So the rabbi tells him to bring all of his animals inside the house, and then one by one he tells the man to take the animals outside. Then the man finally understands that his life could be a lot worse. Number 4. How did the rabbi help the man feel better about his life? Pause the video here, find your evidence, Use the question to write your answer, and when you're ready, push play. How did the rabbi help the man feel better about his life? Well, from the story, we can see that the rabbi helped the man to put things into perspective or change his mindset and see that his life was not so bad after all. Number 5, do you think the rabbi's advice was truly wise? Why or why not? Now, this is your opinion, so there's no right answer, but you do have to support it with evidence. So to get the answer right just means that whatever opinion you say, you have to be able to prove it or support it with evidence. Pause the video here, write your answer, and when you're ready, push play. Okay, because this was your opinion, I'm not going to write anything, but some of the things you could have written, you could have said, yes, I think it was wise because sometimes it takes talking to somebody else to realize you don't have it so bad after all. Or sometimes it takes changing your situation to appreciate what you had to begin with. Or you could say, no, I don't think it was wise advice because in the end, the house is still going to be crowded and in a few days, they'll probably be frustrated with each other all over again. I don't know. Or you could have something different than even that. As long as you have some reasons why or why not you think the advice was wise or not wise. Wise means that it was like good advice, smart advice. Okay, this was the last day, and I will see you next week for the last packet before summer vacation. Woohoo!